Alright, guys. Let me get out of these underground ruins. I'm gonna walk out here. So, I've been obviously playing with this area and the cavern area, and then this area over here that are all kind of based off of Goblin's designs. I've done a little bit more work in here over the weekend. Not a ton, but I was able to play around with the sewer just a bit. It's still not complete. I'm still kind of working on that, but I think today's stream's probably gonna be a little shorter stream. I've had a long day at work and back-to-back meetings, so I think I'm just gonna kind of do a shorter stream. And what I want to get to is I want to start kind of playing with some of these building shapes out here. Just kind of roughing them in and just kind of starting to get that feel of what this could be. So I'm going to just kind of start playing around with that a bit tonight, and then we'll see how far I end up getting. So let me exit out of here. And again, I'm kind of working off of these building shapes. These kind of stacked buildings. And then, you know, the wooden like ramp systems that run up to them. We're just going to do a real rough block-in initially on these, and then I would go into a more finished version of them that you could actually like get inside and stuff. Let's just do a basic about that. Oops. Let me go over here. I know of flat plane. And then we'll just bring this over there. Like so. Okay. And I want this quarter meters. All set up. Good evening, Aragon. How's it going? So, kind of working on roughing out these buildings tonight. Not too bad. Just kind of tired. It's been a long day. Not necessarily like a bad day, just ended up having a lot of meetings and stuff like that at work today, so I'm exhausted. But other than that, it's been going pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna play around with roughing them in a bit. I don't think I'm gonna get it to a point where we can get into them tonight, but I just want to kind of start playing with the general shapes. And you know, go from there. Actually, I'm gonna give myself another box because I extruded this one and I did that a little premature. Wednesday can be a heavy day for me too. It just ended up being that the department. We ended up having a department meeting for the one school that I had. Actually, it was like a half hour ago we got out. And then I had some stuff to do, like some small meetings and stuff at lunch. And then was teaching class all day. And the class I'm teaching is basically just a bunch of meetings with students, so it's just meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. Yeah, exactly. I will be happy when I can just lay down in a bit and probably pass out. Although the way my brain works, I'll lay down and be like, finally rest, and then my brain will just like kick into like overdrive and get creative because my brain loves doing that. I want at least one just normal square so I can kind of go back to that if and when I need to. Before I start building them up, I just want to kind of get a layout of where they're going to be and make sure I get the scale right before I start really working into the overall shape. Like, this is probably going to be really long, but I also just want to take a look at it. As well. And this one I'm being a little bit, you know, I'm going to be looking at just these kind of general stacks, stuff like that as I go along. This shape I decided to play around with just because of the way the alley from our ruins down here kind of was laid out, so I figured I would just kind of play with that. Can I turn the music down a tad? Sure. It is a little loud. That better? Whoop, that was... Nope. Had it, and then I lost it. There we go. I think that's better. There we go. Awesome. Okay, let's take a look at this real quick. I don't want to get too invested in playing with the shape before I got that footprint figured out. Feels alright for an end. Definitely needs to be taller. Okay. So those are working. This one could potentially be a little bit shorter. And just a pinch, so there's a little like here. That's weird. Why is there a dollar sign? My bot mess. Let me bring up my bot. What? Weird. Not in the message. I have no idea why that's popping up. In store. Building a little. Now I do want to bring in some of this kind of split level stuff in here as well. But I also want going to be really leaning into the kind of stacked aesthetic of these taller buildings. How we can kind of play off the two. Let's see. Want to are probably a quarter of the way overhang. So I moved that way too far. So that's about there. Right there is about a quarter. Actually, I want to do it this way. Oh. It's on the top. Some of them do. All of them. We'll play around with it. I don't know. The idea. I like how they're looking on here, but I don't know how that's translating. Although this building itself is more square than this. the stacks that look like this. They're kind of weird. Looks kind of cool here, but I think once I'm actually seeing it in 3D, it's starting to look and feel a little too modern. There's actually a building on the lakefront, not too terribly far from me, that this is reminding me of really quickly. Hey, Squid Pasta, how's it going? I'll play with it a little bit more, but I might try some other stuff with this. I'm not getting what I like. Smaller stacks on top. I'm not. Some things don't translate as well into 3D. And this might be one of the cases where it's just not gonna work if you want it. So, tonight's probably gonna be a slightly shorter stream. I've just been like slammed with meetings all day, and I'm exhausted, but I still wanted to stream. So what I've decided to do, because this is something I wanted to get once I had these planks kind of laid out, and granted, I still probably need to do some adjustments to them, but wanted to start taking a look at some of these taller building structures in this concept from Goblin. That technically the buildings that I've already worked on are technically on top of, but you can see kind of the stacked stuff going on in the background, and you know, this is kind of the base of them. So I'm just kind of roughing out and playing around with the shapes right now. Although this particular one, granted it's not a one-for-one, and you know, these are very just kind of rough block-ins from this concept, but it's feeling to me that the stacked tieredness of it is starting to feel a little modern architecture for my taste, and it's not feeling it's losing some of the stuff that was working over here. I think, not that this is, you know, 100% what we want, but this is kind of getting the flavor. I think that the stacked look is not quite as successful. But I'm going to keep playing with it just for a little bit. See if I can find what we're looking for in it. Or we're playing with some other ideas that kind of bring this together. So it's just kind of going to be a shorter night of me just kind of playing around with the rough outs. Really just kind of getting scale for buildings and stuff down before, so, you know, basic rough outs before I take it to something more refined where there's actual walls and stuff like that. Not digging the every tier. I do like something like this, where it's like a much larger area and then it's kind of got overhangs. I think that can work. I'm going to kind of lean into that more, I think. Delete some of this. Yeah. Move this out of the way for now. Yeah. I mean, there's literally... It was built in the last year or so. Or it was being constructed before the pandemic, but I hadn't seen it until started going back to actual in-class teaching. But there's literally a building where it's almost that exact same thing, just way noisier. There's just a ton more units and stuff sticking out of it. So I think though, bringing it more where there's less tiers and it's more You know, there can be overhangs, just not as many. I think something like this is going to work. But that's part of, you know, playing around with the concepts and stuff like that. I mean, that's essentially what this was me initially just roughing. Excuse me. This is not changing over. It was me roughing out these shapes and just kind of playing around with them, see how it translated to 3D, and this kind of worked really well. There's probably a little adjustments, like this pathway over here could probably be extended a little bit to make it a little bit wider, because this ramp go up here is way steeper than it probably should be. But that's something we can adjust if we decide to keep it as moving stuff around. Let's go back to this shape. It's almost got the one overhang on this side, which I'm going to make overhanging the street, so it'll overhang towards us. Meter overhang, at least for now. And then maybe even a little bit of an overhang this. Oops. You need to hold on. Ooh, hold on a second. Did this wrong. These two. Shoot. Actually, now one. Then we'll bring the other one up. Now we'll bring the overhang. A little high. You draw inspiration from real life architecture. Yeah, so actually, let me attempt to open this up. I don't know how well my stream is going to handle this with the project. Let me open up this pure ref document. Whoop, as I smack my stream deck. So we go over here. Well, the white color definitely will as well. But so this is a document I've been working out of, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here as well. But the original, so these are some of the original inspiration references that Ali and Sean had sent me when I initially got on the project, or when I started talking to them about getting on the project. So I really liked this one, which is Eddie Ben Hadu. But it's an old loam and ram mud fortress, I believe, in Yemen. It actually was used as Yunkai in Game of Thrones. But it's got some really cool, just kind of architectural stuff. And if we go, let me move this out of the way. Go back over here. I kind of took some of the shape language from that and redid the market buildings. So hold on, they're still in here. I just have them shut off right now. Did I delete them out? Oh. New mesh. I cleaned them out. Hey Nick, how's it going? Yeah, I might have actually cleaned that stuff out of the geo. Anyways, but the older buildings didn't have, you know, some of this extra detail, and then I was playing around with some trims and stuff like that, and then it didn't initially have these kind of steps up here. So what I did was I took, you know, this kind of architectural, you know, shape language that Adet Ben Adu, and again, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but I'm going to blame it on my dyslexia. But I kind of leaned into that, and then I took other inspiration from a bunch of these market references that I gathered from, like, modern... No, unfortunately, there's no Sean for this stream. How's the evening going? Pretty good. Just kind of tired from working all day and then getting out of a meeting pretty much right out of work at another one. Other than that, I'm doing pretty good. But here it is. So this structure right here with these columns looked a lot like columns Sean, or I think Sean said Ali did them initially. So I kind of, they're more elongated, but they're kind of more matching the dimensions of what the original Geo was. But I kind of took this shape and the pillar and then the way the rocks are. That's all very inspired by this. And then you can see, you know, you've got the trim kind of going across here, and I have a trim going across here. I put a little bit more space to keep the rafter bars going across. But, you know, a lot of stuff, you know, we're looking at things like that. So we've got all sorts of stuff for when we really start hitting the marketplace to look at objects and colors and things like that. And then we've got some older, you know, older paintings of bazaars and marketplaces to kind of look at. And I think some of them do a better job of kind of hitting on a feel that we might go for. Even though, you know, some of that stuff kind of kind of is still there in the modern ones. But yeah, very much, you know, look at real world stuff, look at concepts, you know, looking at this kind of stuff for the sprawl, just different buildings and things like that. And, you know, ruins and stuff like that. And then over in this section, I've got, like, just cool looking things. I don't even know if we'll ever use them. But, you know, there's, like, this, like, I think it's a Templar church built into the side of this rock wall, and different mausoleums and different, like, architectural things. Like, ooh, that, you know, this looks cool. Maybe we could use this for something. And then, you know, some more like Petra type stuff, which we've talked about potentially using this as like the entrance to some of the crypts or some of the stuff that's built into the stone, the stone cliffs that are made of, they're more like sandstone in a way. So, kind of looking at those different types of shapes. And there's a lot of Petra in here. There's a lot of Egra and some other ones. But the nice thing about these is, they have some of that shape language again carries over. So, but to answer your question, yes, definitely have been looking at some real world stuff, and I've already kind of here tied in some of that a little bit. Granted, this hasn't been treated with any like trims or anything like that, and potentially bringing these types of shapes up onto the top could potentially be something that we go with. Man, these buildings are in real life. Amazing. Yeah, those are based off of real world structures to a degree. But at the same time, when we're doing something like this, where it's fantasy based, you want to be fantastical at the same time, I think, but also relate to the real world in a way and draw inspiration from it. So it'll be a bit of a balance. But there's definitely things that are in those references that we all like and kind of want to reflect. I think this area is actually getting very good at that. It's just needing to be expanded upon, but also bringing in some larger buildings and stuff like that as well. So kind of just playing with that. But today's kind of picking out some shapes in here, and again, I picked out this one, and I don't think it worked very well. At least at the scale I was doing it, I think it was just starting to feel too modern. But this one, I think, could potentially work, and then having these kind of wooden scaffoldings built up around it. So, oops, I want to close that. Unfortunately, you guys don't get to look at it the entire time, but I am looking off of it when I'm kind of playing around with it. So then up here, up in this area is essentially where this kind of stuff can happen. But let's build some way to get up there. So we walk this way, and what? Want it to face the road, or I think I kind of just want it built off of here. So let's back to Pro Builder. I'll make 4 wide. And I don't want it to... see if that sun bouncing off of it. Let's see about how high I made this. I can kind of get a similar... Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Why eyeball it when I can just duplicate this? That is my pivot. Not set as the pivot. Annoying. Things today. So now I've kind of got a target though. This end. Although I might be moving this up too quickly. This goes around, and then gets up here. I'm already up that high. So let's... But also, hold on a second. Hold on, I gotta get my mind wrapped around, like half melting out of my skull after the long day. Give me a second here. I need to think about this. So this needs to come. Technically, this needs to come. Go around. And it would go. Oh, I'm going the opposite direction. Here's the question. Do I care that I'm going the wrong direction? I think I'm going to keep playing with it this way. I'm going to lower this. I don't know if I'm going to want to keep it this wide. That's covering all of that. So maybe... Oh, I do like... Overhang's already gonna cause me. I don't think. See how I feel. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do with this thing. Go sideways for this part. This is kind of going pretty much sideways. And it'll look somewhat intentional because then this will kind of go. Just pinch to. forgot to snap that one to the quarter meter snapping. Ooh, and I'm really lucky that did not do blackout. Okay. So I am 22 for now. Blood in some color to the brown. Punch. And where'd that go? Color off that. Watch that. Cool. I mean, I could just throw the loam texture on there, but I don't want to get rid of the grid currently. Building with the grid is extremely handy, opposed to eyeballing everything. Let's take a look at this in game. Ooh, for a second there, I thought it spawned me underneath. I was like, oh no, it's going to be a heck of a run. Okay. That feels pretty good. I like this for like the entrance. Have the little stands cut in. Walls. That is a thinner area, but I think keeping the wall or the pathways as a 4, that way 2 people can comfortably walk up and down. Probably the best way to go there. Although up here, not a whole lot of space to work with. I want to be able to like go in here, but maybe also do a split level type thing, kind of like treated that area with a bunch of split levels. So like having a house over there, and then the concept over here has some houses and some of the more fancy stuff, and then we'd have a bridge over built to get over there. Probably about to kill myself, but I want to see if I can make that jump. Let's do it with the speed. Okay. Hardcore time. Oh, I can make it. That wasn't as bad as I thought. You can do it. Now the question is, jumping down there is probably less safe, but I don't know about some of these overhangs. One of those things like when I see it in 3D, I'm like, turn off it. Let's try playing around with that one building though. Oh. And I know I just said I didn't like overhangs, but lots of just I don't like this. Add more. So let's throw some structure. Of course it. That wall. 4. So that's about the height that we found that buildings feel good, is at least that high. Technically, this will probably be a little taller. Levels. Might actually have to bring this down. Do I want to? Right now, it's a really tiny building. Depth of it. Good run. Disconnect. Again, I'm just right now. I don't have a exact plan because again, these are just kind of generalized concepts. We don't have like a drawn out map, so I'm just kind of playing around with shapes, kind of like I did back in the other spot. That one I had a little bit more of an of a. Why is my image not jumping? There we go. That one over there, I had a little bit more direct angles and stuff to play around with, and then kind of spoofed off of that. So right now I'm just kind of spalling and playing around with stuff. We'll see. Some of this will work, some of this won't. I have no delusions. There will be some of this will. What are the roles in game development as a consumer? I have no idea on how it works. Well, it's going to depend on the size of the company. On our team, people are kind of wearing multiple hats. So, for instance, what I'm doing right now is considered gray box rough out, and that's more of a level designer type of a thing. So, what I've been doing here, and down in here and stuff like that is more level design than anything else. I'm laying out the stuff and throwing textures on here. Granted, these textures might be replaced and stuff like that. And level design, you kind of stay with these grids a lot just because it just makes life a heck of a lot easier when you can go, oh, this is 2 meters, and that's the size of my character, so you can just eyeball it that way. Where over here, if I wanted to make adjustments, I have to know the size of like the doors, which I do. They're 1.5 meters or 2.5 meters tall. So I know that, but it just makes it a lot easier when you can. So level designer, and then usually level designer will pass it off to environment artist, which will take the rough out and kind of make it look pretty, and if it needs more work, it'll be exported out in more work or replaced with meshes, stuff like that. You've got your concept artist, which is gonna do concepts, and they can be something like this, the Goblin's been doing, where it's just kind of general, like this is the look, this is the feel that we're going for, very broad. Or it could be, let's say we really like whatever this ends, and I don't like this right now, just to say. But it could be like, okay, now what does this look like? And then we could take an image, pass it to Goblin, and then he would sketch over it. And sometimes that's how some places will work. So we've got a level designer, we've got environment artist, we've got concept artist, we've got character artists, which are the which will build your characters and your creatures, kind of like more along the lines of what Zukin's been doing. And then you have your prop artists, which can come from both your character artists and your environment artists, or just be more of a specialized prop modeler. I imagine at some point I'll probably do some prop modeling. I mean, I've done some like set dressing props and stuff like that, but I might get into weapons and stuff like that at some point. But you also have your effects artists, so they'll work on your visual effects, so particle effects, things like that. Then you have your tech artists, and they work kind of as a bridge between your artists and your programmers. So they've got like a more specialized, a harder to find skill set. So they understand both the artistic side of things and the technical side of things. And I've gone more towards technical art than I ever thought I would, just because of teaching. Students will ask questions, and I've dove in and taught myself to do some, at least blueprint programming. If I learned like Python and probably C# and maybe C++, I'd probably more in a tech art side, but I haven't actually sat down and learned those. But they'll create tools, they'll do rigging, they'll do pipeline type things, and help create tools and things like that for the artists, and they're able to communicate with both parties on a pretty even terms, because they understand the technical side, they understand the artistic side and all that. Am I missing anything on the art? Sometimes you have lighting artists, and their job is purely to go in and light everything really nicely, and bake the lighting in and fine tune that in. They might also do the post-processing pass on the level. So post-processing, you can like go in and really fine tune all of the lighting effects, and potentially do some really cool effects like shells, like cell shading. Potentially we could do something like ultravision, or the different types of visions and stuff like that could all be post-processing effects that go on the screen. You could do things like I said, cell shading, things like Borderlands, like the filter effect that they have on there. It's all post-processing and material based. But those are your major art side ones, and then you've got your programming. There might be front-end programming, there might be back-end programming, there might be tools, systems, physics programming, engine programming, and then you've got, I'm probably missing some on the programming side, to be honest. And then you've got your producers, which are kind of over or in charge of your the overall production, and setting schedules and things like that. You've got art director who's in charge of setting up the look and feel of what the game is going to be, and then kind of make sure everybody's on task and stuff that way. Our artists, you also got animators and riggers, which I completely did forget those. And your rigger is going to build the rig. So the rig is essentially a skeleton that's inside your characters or your creatures, and sometimes it could be inside weapons. It can be inside, if you got like a chain or something that's swinging around in the level with a light on it or something like that. That can be rigged. So they'll build out the rigs, which are the skeleton inside, and then every vertice. So if I go into wireframe, actually let me go over here. So we've got a character over here, one of the older versions of Holt. If I go to wireframe and try to select him, you get out of wireframe. Oops. Select him. Then we'll go back into wireframe. So you can see all the different vertices. The vertices are where the edges connect. So like kind of like the joints of the mesh. So each vertice has weight. So it's basically influence on each bone. So if there's a bone inside my elbow here and another bone in my wrist, all the vertices that are in between have some amount of influence, like 100%, 0, whatever between those. You literally go in with a heat map and you paint it. So in Maya, it's black and white. In Blender, I believe it's like a color heat map. But it's all the same idea, essentially. You're just saying, okay, I need more influence here, or I need less influence there. To make it deform correctly. If something's not paint weighted correctly, it looks really, really silly. But they'll build out the rig, they'll paint weight it, and then the rig usually has a control rig, which you don't actually see in the engine, but inside like Maya or Blender or 3D Max or whatever you're animating in, my hand here might have a box around it. So if I grab the box, or it could be just like a ring around it, if I grab that, I can then move. Well, it depends if it's set up for IK, which IK will draw like a bow essentially. So this joint, and this joint have almost looks like a bowstring between my wrist joint and my shoulder joint. And that just means if I pull whatever is attached to the hand, my elbow knows to bend, and if I move it up, my shoulder will rise. So it makes it kind of like a puppet to a degree. But they'll do all that. They'll set up that, if there's a face rig, or some of those things can get super complex depending on what your system is doing. I don't think we're going to have necessarily super complex, obviously, because we don't have a face rig or anything like that. It's all going to be, texture. I think there's been brought up the, potential of, maybe having different mouth shapes that can be, put on so that it can look like the player's yelling or something, which might also need a little bit of a chin joint to stretch that out. But again, those will be things we'll be playing with. But those are a lot of the various jobs in there. And again, it's going to depend on the team. So not every team is going to have every position. What I'm doing right now is essentially level design, although I'm, listed kind of as the environment artist for the team. Oh yeah. And then, on top of that, that's the developing, and then you've got Q&A testing, you've got marketing, there are other jobs in there, but those are the more like hands-on creative jobs. But there's a lot. The smaller teams like us, you tend to have more than one hat to a degree. So, I'm doing environment art, I'm doing essentially like level design to a degree. I'll probably do some prop modeling at some point. I could potentially do critter or armor or things like that. I don't think I'm going to be needed to, just because, just Night Harbor alone is going to be a huge undertaking with the redesign. We got over Friday, I think we got some of the first repass on the lore. So I've got like a general idea of like one district, like what the buildings and stuff are going to be in one district. And if you look at it, to put it this way, if you count the number of buildings that are in this marketplace right here, and then you go and count the buildings in Freeport, like the old Freeport zones, the number of buildings right here is already more than Freeport, or most of Freeport. That, you know, it's broken into 4 zones. I had the numbers in my head like a month ago, because I actually counted it all out. But I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's like, I think we have like 20 some buildings here, and I think like 3 zones of Freeport equal that many buildings. And we, like, that is not, like, the plans for the building is much larger, the city's much larger, and there's 3 tiers. So I have a feeling Night Harbor's probably going to be the most complex of our cities, just because of the way it's structured with, you know, 3 tiers. Granted, as you go up, the tiers are going to be smaller, but this, you know, there's a lot going to be going on in this one zone. I don't see myself running out of. Is essentially what I'm hinting at there. I don't foresee me running out of stuff to do where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go and help Zukin with a critter here or there. No. Oops, and let me move. So again, I'm just doing block out right now. This is not meant to look final at all. It's more or less for me to be able to look at it and be like, okay, this is working in scale, this is working in kind of composition to a degree. And I can easily go, okay, I like this, I don't like this, and I can just easily, you know, delete stuff, or I can move stuff around. And I did the exact same thing over here. Although this one I had a little bit more to go off of. Now this over here is more freestyled. But when I have something to go off of, you know, it's a lot easier. You can kind of be like, okay, this works, and go from there. This I'm just kind of playing around with the general idea and shape. So, you know, here's that building on top. Although push it here, kind of match that more, and then this also has, getting really bad with my mouse tonight. It's kind of like one of these obelisk type shapes, kind of like these. I'm just gonna kind of throw one of these in here, and again, you know, this could all end up getting deleted. Even by my next stream on Wednesday, if I'm not liking it, if the team's not liking it, but kind of more of a testing ground, see if this is what we like, and then we have a little bit of stuff that we've already learned when we get into that lore pass, where once that's done and we can go, okay, we like this, we don't like this, let's, you know, try this or try that, and then we'll obviously also want to rework the layout of the city. So once we have the lore down, and we have, that is way taller than it needs to be. We have all the, you know, the stuff that's going to be in each of the districts. We can start kind of doing a top-down map of what the layout of the city is going to be. And then go in, draw out a top down, so we really understand. Okay, in 2D because it's a lot faster to do it that way. You just draw squares and stuff. Similar to what I'm doing right now, just can be really fast. And then you can refine that to make a a really nice map that ends up getting could be published in game, or it could be thrown up on the website, or it could be used in a bunch of different ways, or it could just be for us in purposes for the purpose of figuring out what we want the level to be, depending on where we fall on maps. We do something similar to the old EQ Atlas, which I own or owned. I don't know what happened to it. I think it might have been purged at some point, because I don't. It's that, or it's in one of my boxes of books. But I have definitely over the years got tired of lugging stuff all over the place as I move. But something like that could do. I know there's been the idea of like in-game map that you hold up, but it doesn't have any direct where you are. Although I don't think the top-down map that we'd end up drawing for layout purposes is going to be useful for what we are thinking about for that map. Yeah, it depends where we fall with what we want. So I know that I don't think we've made a complete decision on the map. So it probably would not be. I'm from the conversations I've seen and been part of, I don't think we're going to be doing a current EQ map, like the one where you can run around and draw it, but everybody just downloads off map fiend or whatever. I don't think that. I think what the idea is potentially having something that you can, if you have the map, you can hold it up in game and see it in front of you, but it doesn't have any icon where you are. It's just like if I were to be hiking out in the woods and I had a map, and I look at the map, and then I look at my surroundings, that type of thing. So you can look at it and kind of get an idea of where things are, and use it for navigation to a degree, but it wouldn't be like I hit M, and I'm getting a top-down view of where I am in the world. I think that's somewhere around those lines, I think, is where we're gonna fall, but I'm not 100% on that. So I don't think we've officially been like, this is what we're doing. And then I'm gonna throw this. Although currently, if someone runs over there, they're just gonna be probably falling through the world. I don't know if there's collision over in the area this is gonna send you. Which I think there might be. I think I actually got up there once when Nick gave us all float or levitate. Something like here. This building. Could potentially be what you get up. I'm gonna build a ramp right here just so we can get up there, right? But I don't think that's how I'd. I am liking, like, the width. Or just a little long. I don't know about the ship. I'm not gonna go any further because go to a character or something like that. Get out of it. This is gonna kill me now. Nope. Oh, that's funny. So the big fall isn't what killed me. It was the little one at the end. Well, I wanted to get to look at the building from a couple different angles. So I guess this will give me that ability. Although I'm going to be really slow because I don't have my boots of speed. They're on my quarters. There must be a light floating right here. Yeah, there has to be, because that's some of the subsurface color that's coming through there. There must be a light floating above there. Doesn't look that tall for me. Yeah, I suppose you should. I don't know. This currently, I don't think it's working, at least for me. Obviously, you know, I'm gonna push this so that the other players can look at it. To me, it definitely needs some sort of adjustment. Not sure what it is. It might just be, you know, adding some of this kind of stuff where there's like, there are outhangs, but they're like windows or something that are popping out of it or something. Or maybe, you know, just adding in some more doors and windows and stuff is what it is. But currently, I don't know why. Something about it. Something off. Maybe it just needs to be more square, because I do have it kind of elongated in this direction. Maybe I just need to make it more square. Where did my image go? No, this feels more rectangular. This feels more like it's more elongated that way. I don't know. It's definitely going to be a little bit more playing with. I think trying to get into this, into that a little bit more is going to be better. But that's pretty much I wanted to hit on. Like I said, this is going to be a slightly shorter stream. So yeah, we'll play with that. A building, but I'll make it a building scale. Floating in the air. I mean, all this stuff is floating. Maybe I should grab. Up a little cleanup before we push. Boards going underneath. Oops. Oh. I'm like, my brain is quickly shutting down. Apparently, I don't even realize I hit that. Alright. I'm just gonna leave that for now. And we'll save. And then I'll kind of do my ending spiel for everybody. So, if you are new, the game that I've been kind of playing around, or roughing out some of these ideas, which again, I'm not super happy with, so they're at least getting edited, if not gotten rid of. But I'm gonna push it so the others can look at it. And then probably remove it and then push it again. But so yeah, this is Monsters and Memories. We are an indie MMO that is very grounded and rooted in the classic era of MMOs. So late 90s, early 2000s, kind of that first generation of MMOs. EverQuest is a huge inspiration behind this game. And if you want to learn more, follow the link to the website. Also, you can join in our Discord if you're not already a member. Fun place to go. We have a bunch of different conversations going on, whether it's about our game or other MMOs that are coming out, or just game design and game design in general. We also have a mailing list that you can join that you'll get updates when we put out our updates, which also are on our website. But you'll be notified when they come out. Also, if you're interested in potentially joining us for testing and stuff, we're hoping to have people to do some testing later this year with our proof of concept to get some people in, get some feedback, do a little bit of stress testing, that type of thing. Well, maybe not that level of stress testing, but more stress than our servers are used to, with just a handful of us running around. And then this is a link to all the other streamers besides myself on the team. So A Loving Robot is Sean. He's a former EQ dev, and he will stream game testing and development. He's actually tomorrow supposed to have a former EverQuest, and he's doing an interview with a former EverQuest concept artist. So if you're interested in EverQuest and learning a little bit about that, I'd highly recommend checking those out. Those his VODs with the EverQuest developers are actually kind of how I found this project. Yeah, definitely check out his streams and check out the one tomorrow. Sukin is our critter character modeler. So he's been working on a new beetle model. Goblin's our concept artist. I've been showing off some of his work as I've been working off of it today. Nick has been streaming development and a little bit of our Q&A process. And then Ali has been he hasn't been streaming M&M directly, but he was doing some like game jam style things where he was kind of showing off how to get in and start building like a real simple game, and I think he's doing it in a 6 hour time. I've caught most of them, and they're actually pretty interesting. Granted, I'm biased. I find game design in general really interesting, but he does a really good job at kind of talking you through and explaining the different systems. So check out his stuff. I think he also plans to stream some M&M development stuff when he can. Our programmers aren't as free to stream all the stuff that they do just because of security issues. So, obviously we can't stream certain things that would compromise the game, that type of thing. But yeah, so give them all a follow. They all have interesting channels and interesting streams. And I'll give you guys a quick run through of the level, or the zone that we're in. Again, we're in the process of redesigning the zone, and right now I've just been playing around with some of the concepts that we liked that Goblin did and seeing how they translate into 3. But we have a fully fleshed out game. This is some of the other structure stuff that we've been working on. This area I think is more successful than this is so far. But we'll see how that works. Let me eat. I think there's a little bit of lag. Inventory drop. But let me cheat with our GM speed. We'll run over here into our newbie yard. You can see we've got all sorts of stuff running around in our newbie yard. Zookins, bats and snakes and rats and stuff have all kind of taken over some of the capsules, and soon these little beetles and fire beetles and stuff, the scarabs, will disappear as well. But we have fully functional MMO. You can group in attack, you can kill. Oh, I died, so my abilities aren't memmed. Loot. There's merchants to sell your stuff. You're able to level. We've got several zones, some dungeons and things like that. I've also been working on this area over here. But again, all of this stuff that you see here is subject to change as we finish up the lore on what this area is going to be. So once the lore is done, and we got the first kind of batch of it retouched up Friday, I think I said? Yeah, I think it was Friday that Ham posted that. So got like one district's idea of what that's going to be, and we'll kind of expand it out. And then, there's going to be things like this, where, granted, this isn't based on lore, this was just me kind of exploring shape language and kind of getting the feel of a classic EverQuest zone. But we will, expand on this stuff and decide to keep stuff and not, but we want to build up on layers of ruins and things like that. So I was kind of playing around with this whole area. That's going to be really scary with the speed. BDC Retro, you expect they will create a new zone and rebuild this zone in pieces, or can you split it up as it sits now? So it depends on what the layout is. We can probably split it up as it is now. It will probably end up being, I think, so right now Shaded Dunes is part of Night Harbor. Night Harbor itself might end up being 3 separate zones. I know there's been, we have some, frames per second issues that we need to lock in. And actually, one of the things I did over the weekend, where I was doing a bunch of stuff, I was breaking this mesh into multiple meshes to see if I could find out what is causing some of that lag. And it hasn't done, I haven't found it yet. There's definitely something, I don't know, it might be the lights. Just the way the lighting is, because I think a lot of these are real-time lights. I think that might be what's causing it. But I broke them up so there wasn't as many hitting, there wasn't as many lights hitting multiple objects to see if that was what's causing it, but it doesn't appear to have changed much. So, breaking it into smaller zones is probably going to be more efficient. But we'll see. So, let me hop out of here. So, depending on what we end up doing for the layout. So, this is currently what we have. So, we've got Shaded Dunes all over here with, entrances to our various dungeons. And then to Death Valley over there. We have Night Harbor, which is this first you know, like, and the docks, so that the first tier in the docks. Although this area over here could potentially, I think, potentially supposed to be it as well. But depending on what we do for the overall shape, we may end up just deleting all of this and kind of starting to lay it out from there. I have a feeling the second tier, I think, works right now as a, oh, that looks like a second tier. But the scale, like, if you actually get your character running around in here, the scale is not. It's feeling probably too tight for the second tier. But, you know, so the walls and stuff might change. You know, the top of the temple might look a little different or be scaled differently. The scale and stuff might change, but the main thing is get that lore. Once the lore's finished and we can actually all sit down in a huddle and talk about, okay, we know what the districts are, we know where the stuff is. We also have to factor in, you know, what the starting experiences are, what they need to function. Guild housing, player housing, how that's going to be set up, design, you know, how do we want those houses designed? You know, let's say there's I'm just pulling this from nowhere. So let's say there's, you know, 6 standard houses that you know are various prices that are spread across the city, and you know, and reused, maybe stacked and you know, made to feel a little bit more organic, kind of like the sprawl area that I was playing with right there. So laying those out, figuring out how that works into the city. You know, how does it work as the city goes up in tiers? And we have ideas already that we've floated around, but really locking and dialing those in. And then doing that kind of topographical top-down map that can lay out individual districts. And then, you know, maybe it doesn't go down to the per street. We could do it to per street, like a per street thing. But again, sometimes when you're laying stuff out, once you get it into 3D space, you realize, oh, this doesn't work quite as well. Let's play with this a little bit, and maybe playing a little bit more with the height and the verticality and stuff like that. So, you know, as you're running around, feeling like, oh, you know, this is really wide open. Why don't I, you know, have something kind of rises up here and has, you know, like a balcony or something, just to kind of give some something to look at, you know, in a more that's higher off the ground and make it look cooler, or, you know, something, you know, at another angle that frames, you know, the temple at the top, the various points of interest. What are they? And like I said, you know, in the lore that we got some of the points of interest of one of the areas. So what are all of those? And then, you know, having Goblin kind of concept out and what those individual areas can look like, what makes them cool, what makes them interesting. So there's gonna be a lot that goes in that's going into this, in terms of that. And then from there, once we have that kind of locked in, I can take a real good plan of what we want to do with everything that's in the zone currently. Is it that we want to just, you know, okay, Shaded Dunes is now this, and everything over here is going to get deleted. And then what I'll do is build out the other zones, and then we'll copy out stuff, bring it into Shaded Dunes to kind of give the facade of, oh, here's the city. And then when you walk in, you know, there's more stuff there, obviously. But for instance, you know, stuff that's underneath the city, like the sewers and stuff like that, if it doesn't need to link up here, it doesn't need to necessarily be. And even if it did, you know, even EQ did that in some places. You can have like a tunnel entrance to something, and it not you know, it leads you to another zone, and then you're inside whatever that tunnel that leads you to. So we'll have to see about that. And then, you know, this area over here is we want it to be another zone we've talked about. So, you know, like a kind of a southern shore, or no, this is south, this is, hold on, that's north, Sorry, I spent a long day. I'm trying to think here. I think so. Yeah. If this is south, this is yes. I know my directions. And then we're also talked about this linking up to another zone that kind of goes through here that links up with Death Valley. So those zones, like the exterior zones, I don't think are going to take nearly as much time to build, especially once we get more. Like I played around with this simple. Let me duplicate it. This simple mesh right here that plays off of this texture that we wanted to play with. And right now it's using sand. What ideally this will end up being is not sand. It will be kind of like a scree or like a shale field, essentially. So a bunch of broken up rocks that kind of slide and crumble off of here. And it would feel like it comes from the same type of rock, so same color, you know, kind of broken up. So ideally that will be these will be less sandy, which I think will make him contrast against this just a little bit more. Because I think the fact that, you know, you have this material and then this material tends to flatten everything out and makes it a little bit noisier than it should be. But the plan will be to take this similar technique and make more variation in terms of shapes, and you know, kind of retouch on these smaller ridges, kind of tie them back into this type of aesthetic. But once we get those types of things, a lot of these exterior zones will be easier to do. Now, granted, there might be ruins and camps and stuff like that, but Night Harbor itself is I think is going to be, at least for the proof of concept, is probably going to be the largest undertaking. Even things like Fallen Watch, once I get in there and start like laying out and cleaning up the geo, I don't think it's going to be not going to take that long. I mean, you can kind of look down at, you know, this as an example. It took me a weekend or so, and granted I played around with it more, but a lot of this ends up a lot of the time was playing with the general shapes to get the rock and the cavernous feel. Things that are going to be more straight and you know, more dungeon wall-esque, getting those roughed in doesn't take long at all. And then, you know, going in and adding in some of the old school, you know, kind of weird extruded bumps and stuff like that, you know, will take a little bit longer to do, but, you know, not too long. But that's kind of what the plan is for the city, is really you know, right now just kind of exploring visuals from the concepts, what works, what doesn't work, learning that stuff now, laying out the city, conceptualizing the city, and just building it out from there. Cool. Hope that long-winded answer helped answer your question there, BDC Retro. That was really long-winded though. But beyond that, guys, that's really all I have. Like I said, I'm super beat. It's been a long day. So I'm gonna call it a night. Thanks for hanging out. For everybody that does not know, besides Monday nights at 8 p.m., I also stream Wednesdays at 1 p.m. and that's Eastern Standard Time. So 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be my next stream. I might be playing around more with this, or playing around. I'll probably either be playing with this or playing with the ruins underneath again, and you know, trying to get all that stuff kind of tied together a bit so we can take a look at it. Other than that, that's really all I have to say. Oh, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you know, remember to like and comment or give us comments in the comment section. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Have a good night, Nick. Sick Man, thanks for the stream and the rundown of game development process. But what classes will you play? I think it's a mystery. No one's gonna be able to guess the class that I'm gonna play. I mean, my name doesn't give it away at all. It would not be Ranger. It'd almost definitely be Ranger. I'll probably roll Wood Elf Ranger. Would be I might not go the full like bushy kind of plant feeling beard. I don't know. We'll see what the options are. I haven't decided that yet. But it'll either be a wood elf or potentially just a human ranger. We'll see how that all plays out. As my main, and I'll probably do a shaman. I have not decided on my shaman race, but there's a whole bunch of other classes that I honestly I think Goblin's concept for the races and some of the stuff that he's done for the classes and some of the stuff he's continuing to do for the classes behind the scene that you guys haven't seen yet makes it feel like I'm probably going to play more alts than I did for EverQuest. Now, I've done alts in other games. I've done lots of alts in other games, but EverQuest was very much I play Paytas because I just felt like I wanted to invest the time into the one character. And I never felt like for instance, when I played Lotro a lot, like my captain, I got to a point where I was like, oh, I really can't, like, maybe I wasn't getting like the best breastplate, but most of the stuff out of the best, like the top tier raid, I didn't even want. I was able to piece together better gear without it because the itemization that came was weird. But I just started doing alts. But in EverQuest, I always felt like there was more I could always do for my main. One of the things I miss about games nowadays. I felt like I didn't feel like I needed to do an alt. I could have alts, and I had a couple, but I didn't really. But beyond that, I'm rambling because I'm so tired at this point. So I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'll see you guys Wednesday. Later.